Welcome to Inner Voice of Knowing podcast. I'm Kaye, a shamanic leadership coach and healer, guiding you through life with a foot in both worlds. When you understand the terrain of the inner landscapes, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic, you will become the leader within your physical life, both personally and professionally. After all, the power of change is in your hands. Let's get this journey started. Welcome to Inner Voice of Knowing podcast. I am so excited to start this journey with you in episode 1. So you would have heard in the intro that I am a shamanic leadership coach and a shamanic healer. So let me explain a little bit about what I do, who I am, and how I work, so that you can understand the journey that we will take together in this podcast. And I'm so excited. You can probably hear it in my voice. All my life, I've been able to feel, know, sense, hear energy. So what does that mean? That means that I was also from a very young age aware that I had chosen to be here. At the age of 5, my mother would tuck me in. We would do God bless, and every member of the family, we were Church of England, and then we would do the Lord's Prayer. She would close the door. And as a 5-year-old, I remember laying there saying, God, I know that I chose to be here. Please, please take me home and I'll come back in the morning. As a child, I had that knowing. As children, all of us feel the connection to the divine, that we are part of all that there is. It's like we know that the universe exists within us, and we are now here physically also existing within the universe. I had an inner voice of knowing that was so loud within me. It had my voice, but spoke sometimes differently to how I would speak, but it was always guiding me, always teaching me, always explaining to me, laying out the decisions that I would make and where those pathways would lead, why other people couldn't respond in the way that I wanted or felt that I needed, what was going on for them. I didn't understand at the time, but I could feel other people's energy. I could feel their pain. I could feel and sense and know and hear what was going on in their subconscious. I say these days that I know what's holding you back and you don't have to say a word. And that's because I was born feeling, knowing, sensing, understanding energy. Now, everybody comes into this world as a child in that beautiful innocence of feeling their connection to all that there is. The wonderment, the joy, the connection. And we all have that connection to the unseen world as we are in the seen world. But for most, as we are impacted by the perceptions that we take on, the words that are said and how we perceive and receive those words and process it, and our experiences, and as we develop and we feel that further disconnect from our innate knowing of our connection to source, to soul, to all that there is, that gets overshadowed. That inner voice of knowing that's within us all gets dimmed, tuned out, if you will. Well, for me, regardless of what pain and adversity and challenges and difficulties that I faced, that voice remained loud and consistent throughout my whole life. And so, like all of you, yes, I've felt, as we're supposed to, in a way, that we don't belong, that we don't fit in, because as we move out of that child phase you know, it diminishes from 7 on as we are imprinted, overlaid more with these subconscious false stories and beliefs and the perceptions that we take on. We're meant to. We are souls that chose to be here for a physical experience, which means that there is an imprint within us of what we needed to experience in order to grow. So that means that, yes, we were meant to have the challenges in childhood. Yes, we were meant to have the forgetting so that we could come back and remember. That's the journey that I've come to understand that we chose. We're not victims in our stories. We just became victims because we forgot that connection. We dimmed down that inner voice. But that's the journey, everyone. That is the journey. That's the joy in it. The remembering. So that inner voice has guided and taught me. It took me on a healing journey. When I looked outwards for the healing journey, I can tell you now I became worse. I became an absolute wreck on the couch with young babies in the house. The more I explored my past, the more I felt like the victim to it, and the more of a wreck I became. And through experience, I drew on that inner voice of knowing. And I called on that divine source. For many years, I rejected it as the word God as I went through my disconnect and my pain and my anger. As I came back, as I was called back, it was source, universe, spirit, anything but God, until I had my reawakening moment and I experienced in a meditation while my eyes were open that God source impact. I'd had a major car accident at 18, 19, should have been killed. The front of the car was right up in my face. I'd hit the steering wheel very hard, and the police were like, "You should have been wrapped around that tree and dead." I knew I was protected, but no one could fix that pain for me. So it was my mother's advice: go learn to meditate. You seem to be very stressed all the time. And I can tell you now, for those that have been in a lot of physical, continual pain, it is stressful. It's mentally draining, it's emotionally draining, and it's physically challenging. But it led me on that journey, and I learned to meditate with my eyes open, and I looked at a point on the floor like I'd always done. And there was this magnificent pinpoint of light. Oh, brighter than I could even describe to you. And it shot across the room as I blinked my eyes thinking, what am I seeing something? And it hit me in my chest. And I went back to feeling like the child in that innocent moment where I felt this overwhelming connection to all that there is of love. And love seems to be incredibly limiting as I'm actually retelling this story. But words can be limiting for what we actually experience energetically. And I was weeping, and I knew that I had met my God, not a religious God, my God, source, all-knowing, connected to all things. And I felt the universe that existed within me, and that I was connected to all things, and that love was at the source of all of it. And that was like a reawakening for me, and that healing journey. And that journey constantly led me back inwards through a lot of bullyish experiences, which were an absolute blessing because it led me back into this voice that has always guided me, always trained me, always talked to me, always explained the intricacies of what was going on in my life and what was going on with other people. So I learned to surrender, and I learned to trust that knowing. It also sparked a passion, a drive in me, a reason for being here. And that was that I wanted to be a guide for others back into their inner knowing, back into the understanding I had gained through my experiences, the knowing that I had gained through the many terrains spiritually that I had walked through, the uncovering that truth is beyond the shadow of the belief system. And it was the belief system that was creating the sticky spider's web of illusion, holding me in pain, holding me in disconnect, holding me at a distance from the power and truth that existed and the wisdom that existed within me. And I realized, had I found people that supported me through that journey, I would not have trusted that inner voice. And I had come into this life because I am shaman. You are either born a shaman or you're born into the tribe and they know that you are shaman. You don't put your hand up and choose to be shaman. You can live according to certain shamanic practices and principles, but nobody puts their hand up and says, can I please be a shaman? Because the challenges and processes and experiences and initiations that you need to go through in order to be able to understand the different landscapes of the unseen world and to be able to come back from that consistently, nobody puts their hand up for. So yes, I feel energy. I understand energy. Energy is the place of my natural state of being, and everything is energy. So in leadership coaching, it is my purpose to guide people, because as a coach and as a healer, that's all that I am. I am a guide that understands the terrain, and you yourself do the journey. You yourself take that journey. But when I went to Borneo to go to the top of the mountain, to sit with the shaman, and they turned out to be women, I loved it, because most people perceive shaman as masculine. That's not necessarily the case. There are many female shamans. And I had a translator, and I did that journey. I took that journey, but I needed the guide to take me there. So that's all I am. And leadership for me in coaching is we are soul first. A lot of people are saying, yep, I'm a soul who chose to come and have a physical experience, but so many people are not living from that perspective. They're living from physical experience and physical perception first, and then maybe bring some of the spiritual, energetic soul in. But I ask you to flip it. You are soul and energy first, and that when you can tap into that inner voice of knowing that's not soft. A lot of people will say that whispering voice. I'd say it's whispering to you because you have not been fully tuned into it. You have overlaid these other voices, these other false stories and beliefs coming from the subconscious, and it has diminished that voice. But when you clear that, when you understand the terrain of your mind and what is happening and the role that the subconscious false stories and beliefs play, and when they come into play and why they come into play, and the emotional body and what's happening there with energy that is locked up and trapped, and that it's all energy, everything is energy. Science backs that up. It's just all vibrating at different frequencies, at different rates. But when you can shift that energy, when you can understand the language and who's trying to talk to you through your emotional body, and you understand energy and the spiritual principles, and you dial up the intelligence within the heart and that inner voice of knowing, then you lead yourself through your life. But remember, you are soul and energy first, so why would you not listen to the soul and deal with the energy in order to guide you through your life? Now, a lot of people will call the inner voice of knowing intuition. As you take this journey with me, you will recognize that there are different words that I will use to explain the mass understanding. And that is because this is what I know. This is how I have been taught. This is what I understand beyond a belief system. Words have power. Everything is energy. It is my purpose here for you to see things from a slightly different perspective. Therefore, you will hear them from a slightly different perspective, with a different language, my unique voice, as it has been given to me and comes forth from me. You all have a unique voice. You all have this inner voice of knowing. You all have this never-ending well of wisdom within you. We just need to move the debris to gain understanding of the landscape so you can see where you are at any given moment in life and what you can do to amplify this voice. Now, the reason I don't call it intuition is because I've never known it as an intuition. Intuition feels quite ethereal for me. It feels, I can't, what can I trust that? If you feel into the word intuition, it's sort of up off the earth. It swirls around me. This is how I experience it as energy. So, inner voice of knowing I can trust. There are three components to this inner voice of knowing. Knowing has certainty in its vibrational frequency. Now, in my shamanic healing work, I work with sound because energy in its purest form is color, sound, and number. Hence the numerology. The numerology factor to science and to energy. And we all know that sound influences us. Words, the sound will either elevate us or take us down into sadness. We know that when someone is grieving across the globe, we don't have to understand their language. We know the sound and vibrational frequency of grief. It is universal, of love, of joy. I remember I must have been about 6 or 7 in primary school, sitting there, and this little Japanese girl had come in and she couldn't speak English. I couldn't speak Japanese, but yet we had the most beautiful conversation because I was able to feel her emotion, her communication, and communicate back to her via sound, via touch, via look, via energy. It connects us when we understand that language. So in my healing work, I work with sound, different sound tools, drums, rattles, Tibetan singing bowls, tincture bells, all sorts of things. But I also have the ability to sing energy to people, through people, and out from people. But I came to understand that too many are making the healing process complex. Healing can be swift. So in a way, all the work that I do, whether it's in the coaching to develop you into the leader of your own life, whether it's in the shamanic healing work that I do, I am constantly working with energy. Hence, words have power. Hence, you might experience through some of these podcast shifts within you, because I'm not here to deal with just concepts. Part of it for you is to remain open in mind and open in heart. Some of what I will say will land and feel familiar but not be really fully understood. That's okay. Remain open. Don't let the ego get involved and go, oh, yes, I know, and close down. Because I can tell you now, the message that I have been bringing through for over 33 years is consistent and the same message that I started with, that I learnt, that I was given, that I knew. But what has happened is that message has deepened, expanded, and elevated within me, within that understanding. Okay. So let's get back to the inner voice of knowing. When you hear that word, close your eyes, inner voice of knowing, it's like a stake in the ground. I have a knowing. There are 3 components to that voice, that trinity. So let me explain it to you. The knowing aspect is God, or source, if you like, whatever word you are comfortable with. If you hear me say God, I'm not talking a religious God. I'm talking of that power, the creator of all that there is, has been, and ever will be. Replace it with what you're comfortable with until you become familiar. So let's call it source for now. There's no louder voice than the creator of all that there is, and you are the universe. The universe is within you. All that exists is within you, so that voice is within you. It's also around you, because the universe not only exists within you, which is scientifically based, but you exist within the universe. It's a voice of knowing. Can you feel that? You have it. The other component is contained within that inner voice of knowing is power. Power. Don't you love that word? That voice or component to that voice of power is your soul. Your soul is the divine spark of source. Your soul chose to come into this physical for an experience. Why would you then not listen to that voice that is imprinted with why you came for your highest, most direct purpose? We just need to get the rubble on the pathway out of the way and understand the terrain and how we need to move through that terrain of what is in the way, so that we can get to the truth that exists beyond the shadow of the belief system. The belief system, those false stories and beliefs, is like the spider's web. We need to not get caught there, which is illusion, and move to the other side where truth exists. So you've got source, you have soul. So knowing, power. The third component to this in this recipe is potential. Now, the aspect of this voice of potential is self. It is your future successful self that has already achieved what you aspire to. That aspiration has come from. Kaye, do that podcast, write that book, go get a personal trainer. Do this, do that. That part, that aspect of that voice is saying, come. You are already successful. Let me show you the way. So already achieved, knows the pathway, the choices that you need to take and the actions. So in that inner voice of knowing, source, power, soul, potential, future successful self, can you not feel that massive strength and stake in the ground that you can trust? Because those 3 elements of that one powerful voice, those 3 aspects of that one powerful voice are speaking to you for one reason. Your constant support, your guiding mechanism for your highest purpose. It is like your GPS. I did this the other day. I had to go do a training into an area that I didn't know that suburb. So what did I do? I put in the destination, and then I sat back, I let go, and I trusted where I was told to go. I didn't question it. I trusted it, knowing in full faith it would take me to the destination I had programmed into it. So why would you not sit back and trust that inner voice of knowing, power, potential, source, soul, successful self? So the purpose, the intention of this podcast is to help you to become the leader of your own life by understanding the terrain of the mindset, the emotional, the energetic, the spiritual principles that will drive you and your choices. And you can become the conscious creator and crafter of your life, where even though you may feel challenges and feel doubt and feel fear, you will understand the purpose of all of that. It will be a signpost of where you are on your journey. But I will share with you how you dial into, tune up, like tuning into a radio program. If you are not fully tuned in, you will not hear it, feel it, know it with clarity. But I can guarantee you, you take this journey with me. You remain open. You take the concepts of what is said and you apply, remain open, explore, and I'll give you some power questions along the way to explore. Then you will integrate with the application, and in the integration, you will actualize the change that you seek. Now, those that I work with are courageous because they are willing to do this journey, to implement, to integrate, to actualize, and be uncomfortable during some of the growth change process as you shed the old and the familiar. But I can tell you now, the reward on the other side of that comfort zone, as you become the conscious creator of your life, and there's another word that other people will say, manifester. You have been manifesting unconsciously all your life. But listen to the difference of it: manifest or consciously craft and create. Because that power is within you, that wisdom is within you. It comes from you. Sounds way more powerful. So let's take this journey. In this journey, you will have podcasts where it's just me sharing my wisdom and my experiences. And when I come across powerfully aligned people creating powerful, aligned change where they know that it is soul and energy first, and the differences that it makes in their businesses, in their lives, in their relationships. Because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs that have left corporate jobs or getting ready to leave and doing what they can to integrate the understanding of this, because the old way of living, the old way of doing is no longer working. Because we can no longer deny that we are soul and energy first. The unseen is here to drive us through the world of the seen. I'm going to make this grounded. I'm going to make this practical, but it's also going to be deep. So I'm excited. So sometimes you'll get just me. Sometimes you'll get amazing guests, and I'm not going to bring anyone on unless it's completely and fully aligned and they're being leaders within their own life. Feel free to contact me. My website link is below, or find me on Facebook. Give me your feedback. Ask your questions. Let's enjoy this journey as I share my shamanic principles and depths of understanding of energy and the different worlds and the different terrains, so that you can be seated in the driver's seat of your life, leading, consciously creating your aspired outcomes. I look forward to you joining me next time. Join me on my next episode. And if you love this podcast, please subscribe by clicking on the plus button if you're on Apple, or like and follow on Spotify, rate and review. And please share Inner Voice of Knowing with your friends.